James here. Today I'm going to share with you my do-it-yourself solution to build a custom seat for the rack of an e-bike. In this case, this is a KBO Ranger cargo bike, but you can adapt my ideas that I've implemented here for pretty much any bike that's, has the space, a rack, to do that. You definitely want to keep in mind the capacity of your rack if you do so. It took me a while to get together this video. I built this originally at least a month ago. We've been using it. My kids love it. But I did make some changes after the videos that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So I just wanted to show what those changes were. When I created this, it was quite a project that we did over multiple days. I wanted to involve my children in making it. So once I had finished all that, I was a bit overwhelmed with all the raw video that I have. So a lot of me getting this together is trying to, condense that and provide continuity so that it's clear. And I'm certain in some parts it's not clear. So if you have any questions at all, please comment and I'd be happy to explain something I did. You'll see in the videos that originally this seat was 24 inches long. So it basically ended right at the back seat here, and that's one of the changes I did after the fact. On this bike, I wanted some extra cargo space, so I actually used a 3-foot pine 1-inch board so that I can put stuff back here. Now, if you do something like that, keep in mind that you've basically created a fulcrum and a seesaw, so you can't put a lot of weight back there. But typically, I can put an Instacrate back here. My general configuration at this point is I have these two, the seat back and seat removed, and I have this lengthwise. I wanted the entire thing to be as modular as possible, so this board here is kind of a platform that I can attach anything to. In the videos, originally I was thinking that the seats were going to be integrated into this board, so I don't really have good videos of me cutting the wood for that, but it's the same process as cutting all the other wood. And then for finishing touches, you'll see on the backs of these I have just a 1/4-inch plywood that I've painted orange to match the bike here. Let me just show you how these go in and out. So we've got the seat back. This is 17.5 inches long. It actually goes through this board, and we've got a support here that keeps it from going, any further. And then on the bottom, I've got where you can put a bolt through and secure it beneath the board. Next, we've got the seat bottom here, and you can see these. And when we do the upholstering, you will see that, how I do that. And these go through holes that I've done, and then you can use a wing nut to secure those in place. Same thing with back here. And then the board itself I've secured to this rack using M5 bolts here and underneath here. The cushioning on these is 3 inches thick for the seats, and it's 1.5 inches thick for the backs. One thing I know is kids are good at is complaining, so that was pretty important to me. My kids have not complained about comfort with this, so that's good. And I'm actually going to bring the camera over here and just show you on this one. When I decided that mostly I'm just going to be doing a single seat, because my older child actually rides our electric XP most of the time, I actually created a second slot for the seat back here, so she has a bit more room. I did not move the seat bottom back also, because she said she was comfortable where it was. For the Instacrate itself, I just attached those with 1/4-inch bolts with a fender washer and wing nuts. You can either use regular wing nuts, or they also make wing nuts that actually have a washer on them as well. Okay, here you can see slots for bolts to go through. Here's my seat back and seat back if I'm doing 2 seats on one. For a single seat, I've got that there. And here are the bolts that go through, and then just my attachment points for other stuff. The other thing you'll see in some of the videos is that I'm discussing making a seat for a electric XP. Originally we were going to make both of them at the same time, and we did some of the work, but ultimately we didn't finish that one when I kind of ran out of some of the upholstery material that I needed and decided that what I had was adequate, so I didn't really need one for the electric XP. But you'll see when we show how to make a template of the rack, we actually do that on the electric XP because that video turned out a little bit better. But hopefully you can take a look at what I'm doing and come up with something that works for you. Tools that you need for this: I used a table saw for cutting my wood. You could get some of the boards cut at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that, or get pre-sized boards. For cutting the angled wood, and that's going to be pretty important, you're going to either need a jigsaw or a scroll saw. I use a scroll saw because I have one and you can do a lot more delicate work. A jigsaw would work, I don't have as much control with the jigsaw as I do with a scroll saw. If you do need to get a jigsaw, you can pick one up for $30 from Harbor Freight. I have one that I've had for probably 8 years. I maybe use it a couple times a year. It still works just fine. Scroll saw is a bit more expensive. I also use a orbital sander for some of my sanding. You're going to want, curved edges on here that are smooth. You don't want scraping. You could certainly just use sandpaper to do that and be a lot more effort. I also use a router to route the edges. Again, you can do that with sandpaper by itself. It just would take a while and is not going to look as nice, but it's certainly doable. Of course, you're going to need a drill and bolts and whatnot, but those are the main things that you're going to need. I also use a miter saw as well to do some cutting on the wood. One thing to say, I'm not an expert. It is up to you to make this as safe as possible. So think about your children's safety when you're doing this. My children are 7 and 10. They know how to ride bikes. They know how to balance. So I have no fear of them just randomly falling off of this. If my children were younger, this would not be adequate for a child that has the potential to just fall out. When we're riding, there's never really any lateral forces that are going to push my children out. But if I wanted to make this safer for a younger child, you could certainly use the seat backs and make a cage around this somehow that would provide more support so that they just don't fall out. As you know, if you have young children, they fall down. The other thing, and I'm not going to lecture on safety, kids wearing helmets and whatnot. I'll just give you the reason that I personally wear a helmet all the time, whether I have my kids or not, and that's because I'm afraid that if I fall and hit my head, I'm not going to die, and I will have a slow death. So it's certainly up to you, but head injuries are no joke. All right, with that, I will start up with the videos, and again, feel free to comment, questions. If you think this is awful, let me know. I'm not a pro. I'm just kind of doing this for fun and to help people out. Thanks. I've got Simone and Freya here with me today, and before we start this project, I believe they have a message for you. They'd like you to
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yes, please do. So we've got the KBO Ranger cargo bike here. Beautiful bike. Just got this one in recently, and we have Electric XP 2.0. We've had this one for a few months now. Both of these have cargo racks when they come from the factory. This one is much beefier than the electric, but I thought, maybe I could have my children ride on the back. Now on this one it says max 35 kilograms, so about 70 pounds. This one holds a lot more. I'd have to look it up, but one thing to note is you might see these and say, well, that looks like it can hold more weight, and it probably can. They do want, have a measure of safety in there, but when you go over a bump or something and come down, the force is going to exceed your weight. So if you weigh 100 pounds, if you come up and go down, it might be 150 pounds, coming down on this. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I did buy a seat off of Amazon and wanted to see if this would work, and this is just complete garbage. So we're going to build our own. The first thing we want to do is, know how big our racks are. This one here, I believe I could fit 2 children on at the same time. It's got the running boards built in. This one is much smaller, 1 kid max, I'm thinking. But one thing to consider is, really important. You want to do something to protect your child's feet, so I'm probably going to have to build some sort of makeshift running boards on this one. You do not want your child's feet getting stuck in the tire. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get a measurement here on how big these are. From the front rail on this one, it's 12.5 inches, and side to side we're at 7 inches. And you've actually got 3.5, 4 inches to the back of your seat, depending on what seat you have. Now this beast is, let's see, front rail all the way to the back, 22 inches, and it is, looks like 8 3/4 inches wide about. So the first thing you're going to want to do is have your child, sit on the seat to get an idea of where you're going to position them. So this one, I don't expect Simone to ride. She's actually, above the 35 kilograms. But Freya, if you could come over, and we'll have you sit down on here. I'm just going to take it off the kickstand. Simone, if you can help me hold this up. Go ahead and sit on it. All right, so you just want to see a comfortable position. We're going to do some seat backs, I think, on this. So she's comfortable about with 3 inches to her back, and then she could hold on to me, or we're going to possibly build something for her to hold on. All right, if you can go ahead and get off, and we'll put this kickstand back down. All right. So before I have both of you get on this one, we'll just have Freya get on. If you could go ahead and sit down on here, Freya. All right. So is that a comfortable position for you if you were riding it alone?
Yeah, also there's this.
Yeah, you've got the handle on the back of the seat there. All right. So if she's riding alone, she might want to do about 7 inches to her back. And now we'll have Simone get on here. Go ahead and sit on here, Simone, and you're probably going to have to scoot forward. All right, so it may be a tight fit. All right, let's see. So Simone's right at the end, and how squished are you, Freya?
Really squished.
Really squished. All right, so maybe for a short ride this might work, but all right, go ahead and get off. And back up a little bit, Freya. All right. And then the other thing to consider, if you're going to have some sort of handle for the child, if you could go ahead and just put your arm up like this. We're going to go and just measure, how high a comfortable position. So about 6 inches to 8, 9 inches. All right. So I'm going to show you a drawing that I made that shows what we envision for this project. The girls weren't too impressed. Okay. Simone has cut 3 pieces of wood now, 2 for the Ranger. We're going to work on 2 different designs for the Ranger. That one is 24 inches long, and it's an inch wider than the width of the rack. The electric one is just the same size as the rack lengthwise, and then an inch wider on each side. Now, Simone, what are we going to do next?
First, we're going to use a jelly jar and kind of put it like that and use a pencil and kind of make a line right there to curve the edges.
Okay, so we're going to have nice curved edges on it. And how are we going to cut those edges?
With the scroll saw.
That's correct. All right, and then what are we going to do after we do all the edges?
We're going to route this side and this side to make it kind of smoother.
Right, so we don't want any sharp edges for little butts to get stuck on, right? Now, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that if there's anything dangerous, I have my daughter do it. Simone, what do we worry about when we're working with power tools?
Safety.
Safety, that's right. All right, so how are you going to be safe doing this?
I'm going to use earmuffs because I'm pretty sure it's really loud, and I'm going to use safety goggles.
That's correct. So the scroll saw isn't too loud, but the router definitely is, but we're going to wear them both. So we're going to do the lines on the corners off camera, and then we'll show some shots of Simone doing the scroll saw. Two hands. All right, let's see. Nice. That's a really good cut. All right. Yes. All right, last one for this one. All right, so it's gonna work. Nice, 4 rounded corners. All right, now we're gonna have you route this. Okay, Simone, what's next?
We're going to route the edges, which means kind of like curve the edges so they're not really sharp.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of sharp right now.
Okay.
And once we do it like this, from up here, we're going to flip the board over and do the bottom of it.
Awesome. Show us how it's done. So Simone needed a break, and seeing as she didn't injure herself or die, I thought I'd do one myself. And honestly, I can't really tell the difference. Maybe if I look closely, which one I did versus which one she did. She's pretty skilled, but hopefully she won't watch this video because I spend a lot of time making sure she thinks she's inadequate. But now I'm going to go ahead and just clean these up by sanding them a little bit, and then we can move on.
So right now, we're going to do the other electric bike, not the Ranger. And first, like my dad did, I'm going to do the holes, color the holes in. Boop.
Let me help you with that.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mark the points like he did over there on all of them, like where it goes down kind of. So there's quite a few. So I did up here. Now I'm going to move to down here. If you see the wells like that, just ignore them because you'll be able to see where it's supposed to be, or the actual corner is supposed to be. So now that I'm done with that, what I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to make little dots right here, like right there, and right here, so we can make a straight line down. I'm gonna do the edges like that, and then put like a tiny dot there and a dot there, so we can make straight line. Okay. Now I'm gonna connect the dots. I'll put this down, and
the short ones.
Okay.
Okay, we're continuing with our multi-day process. Simone's super excited to get this done, but there are a number of steps to this, and we did off camera, we did the same thing as far as preparing wood as we did for the seat bottoms for the seat backs. Now, you'll need to take your template or actually look at your rack and measure how wide the bars are. And you want to do at least half an inch less than that. So on the Ranger, the width is really big, not a big deal. So we decided to do 6-inch wide seat backs for that. Should be plenty on that. For the electric, the width is only 5.5 inches. So we did 5 inches for the seat back, and you can see that's more narrow. Now you may be thinking, wow, that's a really tall seat back. Well, we're going to cut this down when we actually use it. The plywood we were working with was 2 feet long, so you want to just have that long piece, and then you can cut it down to get the right size. So what the seat's going to look like here, and we'll kind of hold it up. All right, Simone, if you can hold this piece up. All right, so if this is the front, you're going to have the seat back, which is going to be somewhere like this, and then the other seat back will also be like that. So we need to make on our template, we're going to look and see where the best place to cut a hole is to go through there, and we're going to do it at a 15-degree angle because that's going to provide for the most comfort for whoever's riding in the back. Looking at the electric, obviously you've got a much smaller platform if you want to hold that one up. And see, this is tiny in comparison, and the seat back will be something like this. So we're now going to take the template. Now you do need to think about anything that's underneath your template. On the Ranger itself, actually on both of them, the last bar actually has a tail light mounted. So you need to think about that and avoid having your seat back that's going to go down go into that tail light, because you are going to want this to come down. I think we're going to do about 1.5 inches underneath the board. Okay, for the Ranger here, we've got our template, and we've just attached it on the top and centered it. The wood that we did for this is about 2 inches longer than the actual rack, and you can see the bar here. This is where the tail light is, so we're not going to have to worry about it because we're going to put this behind it, and we're just going to center it and then move it 2 inches in from the edge. Okay, so for this one it's going to be pretty easy. The first thing we're going to do is just mark our center point here. This one is 9.5 inches wide. And what's 9.5 divided by 2, Simone?
4.75.
4.75, that's right. Alrighty. And we'll just mark that at 2 points here. And then we're going to take 2 inches from the outside here. Now you could go a little bit further, I think, but you do need to consider, how much wood is still left behind it. So, all right. So now we've got the center point marked here. The sun's getting low, so there's lots of shadows. And then you're going to take your seat back and you're going to line it up there. Simone, can you hold this wood here? All right, so we mark the 2 edges, and this wood is 1/2 inch thick.
Yep.
So we're going to just complete that square. And now you've got an outline of where that seat back is going to be going through the wood. You do want to give yourself a little room because that wood is going to be wrapped in some vinyl. So maybe come out, 1/8 to 1/4 inch further when you're doing the cuts. All right, so you're going to either use a scroll saw or a jigsaw. The scroll saw, is much better for doing delicate work. And then you're just going to adjust it so that it's at a 15-degree angle. And then on your piece of wood, you want to remember which way your seat's going, and you're going to drill a hole bigger than the blade at the front there so that you can put the wood in, then reattach the blade so that you can cut out this area. All right, a little technical difficulty there. Okay, and you also need to consider, what angle you've got this. So if I cut this like that, that's not right. The seat's not going that way. So at all times, I need the seat to be facing the long end down in this case.
Introducing Clover! Yay!
Okay, don't be too concerned with this if it's not, you know, the cleanest cut. We'll go ahead and take our piece here and see what we're looking like. And this actually fits in pretty well. Even though there's, you know, it's not the straightest in some places, once we clean that up and we get the vinyl over it, like no one's going to be able to see that. So, all right. So the next step, you're going to figure out how high you want it. So we'll do that testing with both of my daughters, and then we'll go from there. So on this one, you're also going to want to figure out where you're going to put the second one, and you're going to do the same thing with the electric. So I'm going to do those off camera, and then we'll go from there.
If you want to do a second one.
If you want to do a second one. The next thing you're going to want to do is cut a piece of wood that's just going to go back here. In this case, I've got 5.5 inch wide wood that is 1 inch tall. And what I did was do a 15-degree angle cut there. So this is going to go right on the back there. And that's going to maintain the proper angle and will also prevent the seat from going down because you're going to screw in through this side. So you're going to go ahead and measure. In our case, we're doing 17 inches from the base up there. And then once you get it at the right height, you're going to go ahead and just mark it off here. And then go ahead and screw that in with some good quality screws. We'll come back after I've done that. Okay, so once we've added those supports in the back, put them through, we have about 1.5 inches underneath, and it's starting to look like a seat almost. So right now would be a good time for a reality check. So check out how it's going to fit on your bike, if it's looking like it's going to work properly. The next step is we're going to do the same thing as that, but on the bottom side. And on the bottom side, we're not going to screw it in because it's going to be, these pieces will be removable, but we'll have it where we can just do like a wing nut, so you can take them on and off. So if you wanted, you know, just one seat in, or if you wanted one like that and, you know, do something else on the back. This is what our seat looks like at this point. We've got both seat backs installed. They are attached with a bolt and a wing nut, so they can be removed. As you tighten this down, it will, you know, make it less wobbly. Once we upholster it, it will be even less wobbly. But this is going to stay on there really well. The wood will give a little bit of flex, but that's okay. And the next thing we need to do is put recessed bolts in here so we can actually attach it to the bike, and then we will go ahead and start upholstering. This is how it looks on the Ranger at this point, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now keep in mind that we're going to have 3 inches of cushioning on the backs of the seats and on the bottom for the children to sit on.